Justin, welcome back to Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Could you tell me a little about your journey and the influence, obviously Route 45 isn't too far down the road here. For us today, it took less than an hour. For you, it took about 25 years.
Yep.
The influences that Tom Gadd, Dave Legg, and Dave Kotulski had in your days as a player and now as a coach.
Yeah, man, that's, you did your research. Impressive. Those are three of my guys. Starting with Coach Gadd. Coach Gadd was my head coach at Bucknell. His claim to fame was the fire ant defense at South Carolina in the 80s. Had one of the best defenses in the country in SEC for multiple years, and I had the opportunity to play for him as a defensive player. And I learned about toughness. I learned about grit. I learned about fundamentals. My time at Bucknell was the most successful in the history of the program, and that was because of Coach Gadd. So I learned a lot from him and miss him. He passed away way too early from cancer, but certainly a huge impact on my life and my coaching career. And then Coach Koto, Coach Kotulski, and Coach Legg, two of my mentors that have helped me along the way. Really, both those guys got me into coaching. Didn't know I wanted to coach when I graduated from Bucknell. I knew I loved football, and Dave Legg got me a position at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia, and that was my first chance to do it and fell in love with coaching. So I owe the world to all three of those guys.
In the back right, Tyler.
Hey, how you doing today?
Great.
When we spoke with you at the tail end of spring camp, you gave us a little bit of a reflection on the three-man kicker competition, and you had mentioned that Chase, maybe taking some time to get a little more familiar on a new campus, and that maybe that pacing him a little bit behind the other two. How have you seen him handle the offseason in its entirety, and how would you kind of describe that competition to us now through two practices?
Yeah, so that competition, we're in a really good spot right now. I'm pleased with the first 2 days of camp. Those three guys are really competing, and Chase is right there with them. He's found a groove. The spring was a little bit of a transition for him. He was dealing with some minor injuries, but all three of those guys, I mean, we've got a good problem right now in that room, and we just need them to continue with their consistency through camp, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of days.
In the back center, Zach.
Hey, Coach. Hope you're doing well. What can you say about your options at punt returner? Daquan Hardy provided a lot of spark at the position a season ago. What options are available, and who can you say that stood out in your mind to take over that job?
Sure. I would say Caden Saunders right now is the clear leader in the clubhouse. We showed the team a stat the other day, but there were 199 muffed punts in college football last year. So it starts with catching the football. It starts with having range and not allowing a ball to bounce down the field. And Caden gives us both of those. And I don't mean to discredit his playmaking ability, but he is solid as can be in those first two areas. So he's the clear leader right now. However, we've got some names that pop out that are working back there: Anthony Ivey, Quentin Martin, Josiah Brown, some of the younger guys, Tyseer Denmark, all that have a potential to be dynamic back there as well. So again, a lot of depth, but right now the veteran back there is how we feel is the best move right now.
Back left corner, Andrew.
Coach, back here in the corner, you mentioned, obviously kicker competition, but we saw specialist preseason watch lists come out this week, and Chase was one of those guys who was honored. How does that affect kind of the inner workings of how the guys interact with each other in terms of this competition? As some random people say, okay, Chase is the guy, but you're like, okay, well, we're still open.
Yeah, you'd like to say zero. I mean, it's a competition, and I think specialist, kicker, for example, is when you're evaluating other positions on offense, defense, quarterback's an obvious one, O-line in any team, there's so much gray, there's so much subjectivity in making those decisions on who's going to be the starter. At place kicker, it's not as difficult. We're charting every kick. So those guys know that. They know that we're going to look at the data and see who's at top, and if it's close, a guy that's a veteran, a guy that we feel like can handle the stress of the situations might get the nod.
Getting a mic here to Rich, right here in the front.
Justin, what are the plans for returning kicks? Is it going to be Nick Singleton again?
Yes, Nick's back there, similar to Caden, a veteran guy. However, again, we've got a good stable of young guys. Wouldn't be surprised to see some other guys back there, but Nick's got the lead right now.
In the back here, Tyler. Let's get Tyler a mic. Aaron's got it.
Thank you. Always like to tap into your other roles with the team too. Talk a little linebacker. Tamir Robinson is somebody that James brought up earlier today as someone who has flashed physically in development. And then we heard some buzz about him in spring ball. Can you tell us what you've seen from his progression as a year two guy? I know you weren't around for his freshman year.
Sure, yeah. That's one of the nice things about being new too, is having a blank slate when you're evaluating personnel on the team. And Tamir has been, number one, he's a guy that's working his tail off, that studies, that wants to be really good. And, you just see him, he's got the length, he's got the athletic ability. In the special teams room, I know you asked defensively, but I think it correlates to defense. The two things we talk about all the time are capability and trust. Like, that's what we're looking for. You obviously got to be capable and you got to be trustworthy. And he's a guy that fits those two categories. He's long, he can run, he's physical, and he's working his tail off. So I see big things for him on special teams and on defense.
Got time for one more question. Daniel over here on the right.
How you doing, Justin?
Great.
Yeah. Over the past couple of years, the Penn State punt team has had some good, bullets or gunners on the outside. A couple of those guys have moved on. Who stands out to you from that in that position early on?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, we've got, I just feel really good about our depth. If you think about all our corners, and the depth in the corner room, I think that was discussed maybe with Coach Allen. That's been a bright spot at camp so far, and really that whole room is working at the bullet position. So you can name any of those guys, from Jalen Kimber to AC to Zion Tracy. All of those guys that we're looking at to step up in those roles.